we continue our deep dive into the hands. And in the second part, we let the hand talk. And my guest is Tom and my co-host Isabel. We are together here to discover all the secrets of the hands. And it's really totally into your world, this second part, or our world, Isabel, as public speakers, the importance of talking, but the importance of talking hands. And it's an open door, and we all know how important hands are in talking. But it's interesting to have a deep dive into that, Tom. Yeah.
Again, good morning, Karl.
Good morning. Yeah.
So yes, let's talk about the talking hands. Like we said in the previous podcast, hands are helping to give your sentence more power.
Power.
Yes. If you are if you're a good speaker, then your natural hands are moving to express what you're gonna say. But I think that some big speakers, they train before they speak, and they think about how they will move their hands and show something for the audience, like you present the new iPhone. I think that some things are thought about how they present their hands and to the audience.
So too much focused on audience and how can I manipulate my own hands,
how our hands are empowering the message.
So you can see that someone has an authentic or non-authentic behavior in that moment.
I don't know, but it have to be look natural. So if someone is doing gestures and it's very odd or weird, then he is overacting. It have to be natural. Yeah. It have to flow with your words, with your language, body language, and totally.
How could we disagree on that, Isabel?
Totally true. And I also think that's a cultural thing. Like the Italians, they use their hands much more.
Yes.
But the Belgians, they are quite shy to use their hands. That's my guess. It's what I see on the stage.
It's cultural, yes. Italians, they are very known for their hand language. And I saw the Netflix series Rome, and then I learned about the famous Cicero,
yeah.
who talked in the Senate. He was they feared his talks in the Senate, and he had an argue with the emperor, and the emperor ordered to murder Cicero, and so they did. And what special was on that assassination, they cut off his hands and they nailed his hands on the doors of the Senate as a statement. So Cicero is dead, and his hands that were feared in his power talks in the Senate are on the wall, on the gate of the Senate.
That's,
quite a story, yes.
Yeah, looking forward for that Netflix series. Yeah.
That's a big statement from the emperor.
Yeah. And it reminds me as well as about Mark Antony, together with Robert Dilts, the NLP guru, we can say, and as well one of my mentors. We were really looking at Mark Antony, how he used words and language frames in the Senate to convince in this. So it's beautiful link in a later podcast when we talk about words. I really wouldn't go down in this. So by accident, I don't know. It's not by accident. There's something, a system behind. We went into a deep dive about Mark Antony and convincing words, but as well the convincing gestures. Okay.
So I also have a question for you, Tom, that pops in my mind. I often give leadership training, and now I'm wondering if we learn leaders to use their hands more, would it help them to look more powerful?
Of course. If you are more conscious about what your hands are doing as an extra power language to your message, then your message will be more supported.
And you think it can be learned?
Can be learned.
Okay.
Everything can be learned.
and you have some advice for the listeners how their what kind of hand gestures are really like power poses?
Oh, it have to be look natural. If you want to train this, you have to train it. Take yourself on a video while rehearsing your presentation, and then mute the sound and look how your body is moving and what your hands are saying.
Yep.
And if you have the feeling that your message is not so powerful, then look at your hands and try to improve that gesture.
So it's the motorics can influence
Yes.
the brain, and the brains can influence the motorics.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's sometimes when you're presenting, you're rehearsing, you are marking some words in yellow. That's all important, and perhaps those marks you have to think about your hands.
Okay, so the hands emphasizes the message.
Yes.
So they okay.
Great advice. Thank you so much. Tom.
An exercise I often do in leadership training is the inner dialogue. So you don't talk loud, but you use your hands in what you're thinking, what you're saying. So it's
Yes.
I
and
really-
you're more aware
I
of
see
it.
you moving.
I really want to
The-
tape this situation right now. I'm so sorry I didn't record it, but it's beautiful to see you, Karl. You're making it so much stronger. What you
Yeah.
want to say, your message.
Imagine what I was thinking. There's no video in this
I
podcast.
love to do that.
Let's do this exercise once we work together. Some people need hand language to communicate.
Yes. People who have no voice,
Yeah.
they use their
Not the voice that we have.
No, yes, that's what we mean, and they need language by hands. So the gesture by hands is giving their communication system, and now more and more on television you see people
Yeah.
giving.
Certainly in American television.
I think that in Europe it will be also more and more visible that for
Yeah.
some journals or emissions they need to provide language by hands for those people.
Wow. And it's just I don't know if you know the answer, but has every language, or is it a common language, a global language with
I
hand?
don't know that. I think there are some special things for every culture or region.
Yeah.
Some gestures, but I'm not in that
Yeah.
very.
Okay. And it's just a question that pops up, but maybe the link to the global hand gestures, but they are culture related. So thumbs up for this part.
We have to look it up, and maybe that's
Yeah.
something for another podcast.
Yeah. Wow.
But gestures as a language are all over the world.
Yeah.
Thumbs up, like you said, it's good, it's fine. If you see someone, you wave to that person. If it have to be quiet in the room, you place your finger before your mouth and shh, be quiet. So lots of gestures are in the world that everybody knows. Applauding, it's also by your hands, giving someone a good experience after an exposure or concert. So it's a language by its own. However, some of those gestures can be misinterpreted by other cultures, like in the eastern part of the world, Asia. If you're doing a thumbs up, it can be some of insult or something like that. Hands the pockets. Sometimes for me it means he's lazy. He's not doing that thing. So
Yeah.
you've got other.
Yeah. It reminds me, before you go to abroad, learn the hand language before you be careful with this. Yeah.
Of course, of course.
You don't need to learn Portuguese to go to Brazil. First, learn the body language
The body
of the
language.
Brazilians.
That's a great advice. But it's, I think, more complex than that. In psychology, they sometimes say crossing your arms. It's not very polite as well. It means you're showing some resistance. But I've always learned that it's important to mirror someone. If you like someone and they are crossing their arms and you start crossing your arms as well, or you start using the same hand gestures, it means you like each other or you're getting fond of each other. Is that something you're have also already noticed as well?
I think in a conversation, and if your arms are crossed, perhaps it means you're at ease.
Yes.
But it can also be a position to defend yourself. You're a bit stressed, and when you're in a situation, you have to negotiate something, and you are not very certain about your point. Perhaps you can close your body and you cross your arms, and you say, "No, I'm not agree with that point," and it can be in the context of that moment.
Context is everything.
Yes.
Yeah, context. Yeah, and the way you look at context.
That's like the red wire into this podcast. That how you interpret the things makes the meaning of it.
Yeah,
Of course.
and
Yes.
out of your own filters, your own model of the world.
And
Of
that's
course.
why I really like the emoticons with hands. If you type a message of WhatsApp or something, you can add an emotion to that message. If you say okay and you add a thumbs up or okay hands, it's an extra special meaning for the person who received that, because otherwise you're just letters and it can mean everything.
Yeah,
And by
just-
adding those emoticons with hands, it gives an extra sub-layer on the message.
Okay, great. And if you can draw them, draw them.
So true.
Of
But
course.
about culture, then we go to religion. The link is just it pops up, Tom.
I think every religion has its own signs, languages for their ceremonies,
Yeah.
for birth, for weddings, for funerals. A personal story.
Yeah.
When my grandmother died, my uncle said, I don't want her be on a carriage, or
Mhm.
how do you say that?
Yeah.
We have to take the coffin by our hands and bring her to the altar for the ceremony, not on wheels by
Yeah.
a device or something. And because he said we were born and the doctor took us by the hands, the
Mhm.
mother took and father took
The
her.
midwife
Yes,
brought
brought her by her hands, and now we are leaving her by our hands, taking her down with our hands. So that's, for me, was very special. And we have to look, perhaps, if you go to the church or other religious part, look at the hands and think about what those gestures mean in that context of the religious part of the ceremony. And they are very powerful. Breaking the bread, something like that.
Yeah.
With the other things,
Yeah.
the candles lighting up. It's
We
also
need to
small
have.
gestures that have a great meaning.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes there is silence, and if the priester is lighting up a candle, it's so powerful. It's a light in the room. It's hope, and so
And
on.
it's not only in Catholic or Christian
Yes, it's
religions.
everywhere.
It's
It's
as well
everywhere.
in Islam and other languages.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And also ancient traditions are coming back. A lot of times in wedding ceremonies, I perform hand fasting, and then is when we tie the knot, literally with two people that want to get married. We put their hands together and we are braiding a rope around it with 3 ropes. One that stands for the love of the first person, one that stands for the love of the other person, and then one that stands the symbol for their combination, for their bonding together. And that's really that was a ritual performed with the Vikings, the Celtics as
Wow.
well, and that was for them more powerful than saying yes to each other. If you tied the knot literally with your hands, then you were tied together for life. Then your hands would always do the right thing, even if you were in love with someone else. If you tied the knot with your partner, then your hands would stay true to that
You're
as
tied.
well.
Wow.
You're
You're
really
tied.
tied.
It's
yes.
not only about words, it's deeds.
It's deeds
And also
as well.
the ring.
Yeah.
The
The ring.
ring is carried on your hands,
Yeah.
fourth finger. And I've been told that I think in acupuncture or something, the ring finger is related to the heart.
To the heart, yes. And that's
Wow.
also why here in Belgium we use our left hand, because that's has a straight highway to our heart. But in some other cultures they use a right hand, because that's the hand for the deeds,
Yeah.
for example. So it's also a culturally given, but yeah, there is so much more we can learn about the language of the hands.
And talking about fingers, we in the first podcast we talked about the thumb. We're talking about the hard finger, so the ring finger. But there's one finger that's really in particular. It's
The second one,
the second one,
it's the
And
index.
the index finger. And we see index and we hear index everywhere, Tom.
Yes, index is Latin word. It's our middle finger, and it's the finger that we point something. We point a person. We point a text in our book. The index is also the register of the content of your book.
Yeah.
Indexation is for the financial people very important. So it's everything again. And in my previous job, I had every year conversation with my chief, and the hospital used the hand method, and I really liked that because the thumb was saying, "What are you doing good?"
Positive.
The index was saying, "What is your ambition? Where you want to go to?" The
Middle
third finger
yeah.
is, "What do you don't like?"
Hey.
The ring finger, what is your loyalty? And then the pinky finger, extras. So how nice is that?
So it's often used in coaching programs,
Yes.
the hand, and it's easy to understand. We could ask why we have 5 fingers. It's for coaches to make their metaphors a bit easier, Isabel.
Psychologists and coaches, they really like metaphors. They're yes, that's their second language.
That's
It's
our
really-
second language. And
yes.
when we can visualize them, it's even more powerful.
There are many proverbs used with hands, and I really love that. I've got in my practice.
Yeah, you see them everywhere.
I made an art piece with proverbs from Dutch, but also in English. You've got many proverbs with some history, like putting your hands in fire for someone. I've read a story about the Romans, and that someone was putting literally his hands in the fire because he was convinced that that person or that thing was loyal.
I can put my hand in the fire for that person.
That, yes.
Okay.
So, and also in English, you've got many proverbs or idioms. It gets out of hand.
And they keep coming also nowadays. Talk to the hand, because you know what's coming next.
I was remembering this, but I'm happy that I don't remember it anymore.
I'm so sorry, Karl. I mentioned it already. Yes. I'm the
Talk
bad
to
one here. I've
Talk
told
to
it
the hands
already.
because the faces want to hear it anymore. But it was in a really bad program, and everybody knows it. But the story behind, if you go really, it would have been not that guy, but some famous philosopher that would be the word of the sentence of the year. Talk to the hand because the face doesn't want to hear it anymore.
And they are so important, the hands. So he really made a good point.
I've been on a congress, had a conversation with some doctors, and one of the young hand surgeons, Michiel Krommeke, he was saying, people ask to me why you're doing hand surgery, and he said, hands are speaking. That's why I'm doing hands. And that I found very interesting to hear from him.
Yeah, and it was as well the title of this podcast. Hands are words, words are hands, talking hands. And in our next part, we talk about more about the anatomy anatomy of and the real hands, the hands as they are, and
the physical hands.
the physical hands, and then we go really deep into your profession and how important your profession is for many, many, many people. So let's go to a deep dive in the next part, and as well about prevention and injuries and injury prevention. So a bit inside the hands, but physically then inside the hands. How do you enjoy this one, Isabel?
I really loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it in my body language, but
Yeah.
you can also hear it in my voice. Yes.
Your hands are
I'm
laughing.
making I'm making
A little hard with
And in
hands.
China, they do like this. If they like you.
Oh, that's the meaning of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
because
didn't know.
it's
I
a heart
didn't-
shape.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a L beside
Love.
the cheeks under and the thumb under
Yes, yes.
the chin.
I went to
So-
China once, and I really loved a little Western girl running around, and so they all did like the L sign to me, and I didn't understand. And someone explained me this because I love you.
Oh, that's why. So
Okay.
Yes.
knowledge every day, also for me.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's why we launched this podcast as well. Thank you, Tom, for this knowledge and having you here, and looking forward for the next part.
Perfect.
See you. So, thank you.
See you.